This little 3-foot wide section of grass beside me, we hear it called a park strip. We hear it called a hell strip. I've heard it called a hot strip recently. And the fact that there's grass in it is honestly really dumb because it's an incredibly inefficient piece of grass to keep watered and maintained and weeded. So we're gonna rip all of the grass out. And this whole video series is gonna be about how to replace your park strip and turn it into a mini meadow, a pocket prairie, if you will, full of native drought-tolerant plants that honestly look really good and do a whole lot of amazing work for our ecosystem. So stay tuned. This beautiful park strip right here, and I use the term beautiful very lightly because it's just full of grass and weeds. This is going to be converted into a mini meadow that we're going to be using all native drought-tolerant prairie grasses and flowering perennials that work for our ecosystem. And it's going to be hugely beneficial for wildlife. It's going to save a lot of water. Because something you need to know about bluegrass and watering bluegrass is there should really be no section of grass in your yard narrower than 8 feet wide. 8 feet wide, 8 feet deep, that diameter is what's necessary in order to efficiently irrigate a section of lawn at all. This 3-foot wide section, there's sprinkler overspray galore, and we're watering concrete, we're watering asphalt. And I would much rather be watering native plants on a drip line, or maybe even sending rainwater or stormwater to those native plants. This video series is going to walk you through rebates and programs that you can apply for in order to qualify for a bunch of money to fund these projects. It's going to walk through site prep that you need to do in order to prepare your meadow. It's going to walk through how to select the appropriate plants for your unique microclimate, your region, and also how to maintain your beautiful new pocket prairie once it's installed. Before we get into any of the design stuff, I think it's helpful to first research what you can get for flipping your strip. And I use the term flip your strip because here in Utah we have a program called Flip Your Strip where you can get $1.25 per square foot for converting bluegrass to a drought-tolerant landscape. There's also a program in Utah called Utah Water Savers or the Turf Buyback Rebate where you can get $3 a square foot to convert your entire front yard or your entire backyard or both. But since we're only doing the park strip on this project, we're just gonna get the $1.25 for the Flip Your Strip rebate. So the thing that I would do first, no matter where you live, is I would enter your city, and then I would Google after that landscaping incentive programs. That's going to bring you all of the rebates that you'll get for removing bluegrass, for converting to drip irrigation, installing trees. Sometimes you'll see stuff like switching out to a water efficient toilet. I see rebates for doing smart irrigation timers that can actually sense the level of moisture in the soil and then irrigate accordingly. So it's really important to maximize whatever your city is offering you. That way, by the time you're done researching your city, your county, and your state with landscaping incentives at the end, you'll have the full gamut of programs available where you're just gonna get free money. The next step in the research phase before we get to designing is to figure out what rules there are in your city or state or county, but most likely city, about park strips. Most cities have very distinct rules about what kinds of trees can go in park strips, the heights of plants, the level of hardscaping, and so on. So for example, where I live, there is a list of approved trees that can go in park strips. These here are ornamental cherries that the city actually put in. They were just like, these trees are coming, good luck. And I was like, it's an easement, so I can't tell you no, and I'm happy to have them. But if you want street trees, especially if your park strip is facing west, because you might want to get some of that shade from the western sun that could be beating on your yard and your house, you're going to need to Google your city and then approved street trees afterwards. What you're likely going to find is a PDF, and that's going to list the kinds of trees that you can and cannot plant in a park strip. Typically it's things under 20 feet tall because there'll be above ground power lines that could be affected. It'll also be trees that are known to have deeper tap roots that aren't going to lift the sidewalk. So I think it's kind of important to follow these rules. It's just gonna save you a lot of headache anyway. Better safe than sorry, and then you won't be hit with any sort of fine from your city if they catch on. Cities will also have rules and regulations about the types of plants you put in your park strip. Most often it will be that you cannot plant something that will exceed 24 inches tall. And that does actually disqualify quite a bit of our native plants because we have native grasses that are in the 3 to 4 foot range. Even good old fashioned common yarrow can still get 3 feet tall instead of 2 feet. So we're gonna wanna select from a list of native plants that are 24 inches and under in order to be fully compliant with the city's regulations. Cities will also have regulations about the level of hardscape to softscape to plants that are allowed. Basically, permeable versus impermeable surfaces. Most cities, it's a hard no on more than 50% impermeable. So no, you cannot just concrete over your entire park strip here. Some, however, will also have regulations about softscape like gravel. So in my case, my city doesn't have any regulations on the amount of gravel to plant matter. I could do 100% gravel if I wanted to. I won't, because that'll be even hotter and even more high maintenance than my current situation, which no thank you. However, it doesn't allow me to pave over my park strip. And again, I wouldn't do that either, because the last thing I want is people using my park strip to park their actual car on. I'd much rather have a native meadow instead. Now, in order to qualify for the rebate, I do have to follow rules. So that's also something that you're going to want to look into, because even if your city doesn't have regulations on that, your rebate programs might. And my rebate program says that more than 50% of this has to remain plant matter and not gravel. I'm gonna aim for like 80%. I just want to carve out a couple of sections for people to walk across when they park their cars. All right, now believe it or not, we're still in the research phase. We haven't gotten to the fun part yet, but there's another really important thing you need to consider before you start designing your park strip. We need to identify constraints. And I define a constraint as any fixed thing that ain't gonna change no matter what we do, no matter how we wish it so we have to design around it. The most common constraints that we're gonna deal with: gas lines, electric lines, your Google Fiber, overhead utility lines. All of those things are gonna be there whether we like it or not, and they're gonna affect the way we can dig, they're gonna affect what we can plant there. You can't put a tree on top of a gas line, that would yield dangerous results. So right under my feet is a gas line. It goes from where I'm standing straight this way up to the house. So one, I'm not going to use a skid steer to excavate any of this grass. Eventually this grass will come out as well. And I'm definitely going to be digging carefully by hand right here in this section in order to remove this grass. I also could not, if I wanted to, put a tree here. That's not going to work. In fact, this tree might even be a little close for comfort, but at least the city planted it and not me, you know? At least there's that. So identify things like in-ground electric, above-ground utility lines. We can't plant anything taller than 20 feet. Gas lines, I want the tree canopy not to overhang it, because that means the root system is unlikely to reach there. And then Google Fiber, things like comms, sewer, water, they're a little less dangerous to have a tree close to than a gas line, but I'd still steer clear and stick to low-growing perennials instead. One of the biggest constraints that we actually need to work around and design backwards from is budget. Like that, we should keep a fixed cost. You have a number in your mind that doesn't give you heartburn. We're gonna stick to that and design backwards from it based on what's possible. With yards, you could spend $500, you could spend $500,000. There's a way to do it. So instead, pick a number and then we're gonna use that as a constraint. Just like we would a gas line, we're gonna design around that number. For a park strip, the most expensive line item in your budget is probably labor, to be honest. Plants, yeah, they're not free unless there's a program in which they are free, like the Utah Pollinator Habitat Program, for example. But if you're paying for plants, you're still only a couple $100 in plants at the very, very most for a reasonably sized park strip. Come back and talk to me if you've got a corner lot with like 250-foot park strips, because then maybe the plant cost will be a little bit higher. But really the primary expense that we're likely to face is just if you need help excavating and pulling the dirt out, if you need help laying any hardscaping, putting the dirt in, and then of course doing the plants. I think you could expect to spend anywhere from a couple $100 to several $1,000s on this. The excavation, probably expect a $600, $700, $800 bill just to have somebody come and dig out the park strip. And then you've got to add some topsoil, you've got to add some mulch. So I think we're looking at something in the low thousands if you're looking to bring help at the very lowest. Of course, you are more than welcome to rent a sod cutter or get a shovel and a wheelbarrow out and start digging it out yourself. All of those are valid options. It's just a matter of time or money. This concludes today's grass class. You have your homework, do your research. We'll talk to you soon. And 3, 2, 1, action. We're doing a little walkie, we're doing a little talkie, we're doing a little dancey. Government programs giving you free money. That car is on fire. It just drove by, but you can literally see the smoke. I hope they're okay. It was like a cartoon trail of smoke.
White smoke?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's radiator.
cartoon trail of smoke.
They're in for it.
And I cannot probably use a skid steer to excavate. Once we know what we can get, we need to know what we are. Well, class, this can blah 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 blah.